Wessex blades. I don't know whether you've come across my site on a Google search or whether you're a friend or a subscriber, but the sort of crazy stuff I get up to is to make use of cheap, reliable, value for money sort of gear. I'm not one of these nothing fancies with loads of money to spend, and most of the tips and tricks that I have to show and have to share with you are so you basically save money. Now, what I bought last weekend at a boot sale was what I'm thinking is a Mauser. I think it was a 98 Bayonette. So that's that one there. Now, for what I paid for it, it worked out about 21 quid. It's a bit beat up, and because of its condition, I'm more than happy to have a play with the profile, put some epoxy on the handle, sand the handle off, turn it into a backwards blade that I'm quite happy to thump on. So we'll go through what I'm going to do for the repair, but the whole point of it is it's a bayonet, so battle ready, temper, everything's probably up for a serious amount of abuse. So that's what I want to be able to use that in the woods. Very thin profile, if you can see it like that, so it's just going to slip in my pack quite happily. So just go bit basic introduction to it. If I pop it up here, Mitch, that's where the light was good, wasn't it? So if we zoom in there, kid, from what I found on the internet, vague research, there would have been a frog on there which is soldered and fallen off. They're not matched, so that number there isn't the same as that, so it's just a mismatch of a bayonet, a scabbard. I don't care, it doesn't matter to me in the slightest. If we move up the handle slightly and just come out a little, this metal plate here is coming off, so that needs epoxy in. There would be some ridges on this for grip one way or the other. They're gone, it's very beaten up, and as such, the condition that it is, I'm more than happy playing with it. If this was in pristine condition and I bought it for a song, let's say I paid 30 quid and it was immaculate, you'd leave it alone. You wouldn't grind it off, you wouldn't polish it up, you'd leave it as sort of antique sort of effect. But because the numbers don't match on the blade and the scabbard, it's a mismatch, so I'm more than happy to have a play of it. So I'll come back in a minute. I'll see you soon. Oh, hi there. Just messed about with new axe. That was £6. So, car boots are pretty good. Anyway, so there's my bayonet, and it was that little section there that was coming away. So I'm going to use some 2-pack epoxy, not the wrapper, it's 2-pack. Alright, so snap that off. I'm going to mix it down on this little piece of cardboard. I've got to zoom in on that after all. So what I need to do is just prise it apart. So I'll actually lever it up, get the epoxy in and put it in, guys. Right. So that snaps. Now they're all about the same sort of series now, so there's a one-way cap. So the cap goes back on that because you've got the profile of the epoxy. It doesn't want to fit that way because it's up and down, and that way you don't mix what would be the epoxy or the hardener or the glue and the hardener up, and you end up gluing that on. So if you follow the profile of the cap and the glue every time, you won't end up gluing your cap on. And another little trick I got is when you deliver it, you get an even amount of both liquids. When you're happy, you stop. If you just pull the syringe back a little, it won't continue to feed glue out onto what would be your lid. So now I've put that back together like that, and I've just pulled that back a bit there. That way it's not going to continual sort of, you come back a week later and all you've got is a big bob of glue out like this. Right, make yourself a little spreader. Nice sort of chisel edged piece of fresh wood like that. M-Tech. That's mixed up. I'm not too worried about getting it on the handle because it's all going to be sanded off later. Now, you got, I don't know, 5 minutes to get that right. So that is lift it up. As I say, I'm not too worried about being too accurate. That's definitely in there. And I got points all the way along here where it's lifted. So I'm going to be feeding it into those gaps. Right, I want to clear up is that little bit in there, which is an oldish rag. I'll just film that. So that's cleaned out of there. Wipe the excess off. So I'm just taking that away. I'm wiping it into the groove, and then that little cap I'm going to put in the vise. Like that. You squeeze it up, the excess comes out. You wipe the most off again, and then leave it in the vise for, well, I say 5 minutes. I'm going to leave it in for about an hour, and then it should be strong enough to be held in the vise as I work on the blade. As you notice, I've still left the scabbard on. It's pointless taking it off, and it's safer left in the vise if a little one decided to come wandering in and walked into it. So that's, I'd say, quite safe to leave in the vise like that. So come back later when it's good. Welcome back. I've changed the position in the vise. I've got it now in a G clamp, and then this way I can turn it around and move it by clamping the clamp in the vise. Okay, so there's the bayonet. Now I've already had a bit of a play on there to see what sort of steel it is, and the sparks are massive and orange. So I'm guessing it's pretty high carbon steel, but then Germans know how to make really good knives. So I'm going to bring that to a point there, because it wasn't at all like a point, and then I'm going to profile the blade front and back. I'll keep the top swedge quite coarse. I'm not going to bother tapering it up because I'm going to be battening on this, I dare saying. I'll re-profile the blade. I'll go from the grinder probably to the sander and then to a stone. So I'm going to be using something crude and effective like this, and along with that goes eye protection. You only get 2 pairs of eyes and lungs, so that, same with your ears, and a pair of gloves. So I'll get back and get all this garb on. I'll see you in a minute. One little thing I found wearing combinations of masks and goggles and ear defenders and the rest of it. If the mask went on first, then the face guard, then the ear defenders. Because if you put the defenders on first, sometimes the hoop crushes like crazy on the ear defenders. So what I find is mask first, then the face shield. When you put the defenders on, you put the brace to the back. So that goes underneath, that goes there. Then that hoop isn't stuck under there, which really presses on your head and hurts. So up to the back. Catch a bit. well, let's just say it had a nice round edge, because I don't know whether I've read it right, but you're not supposed to sharpen bayonets, something to do with the Geneva Convention or something, but that's sandpaper. Not too cruel on it, do we? So it's pretty tough. So the steel's definitely high carbon because of the iron sparks I was getting off of it. So if I go to the stone now, I'm quite happy with that sort of rough finish. I even managed to put a rounded bit in there, look at that. Isn't that cool? Right, so I'll get an edge on, then I'll start sanding the handle down. Catch you later, I've done a bit more work. It's coming on a tree, it's a lot better than what it was. Hello, welcome back. One of the other little jobs I've done on the bayonet is I've took the sort of muzzle shaped round section out of that, because as I was putting my thumb on top it was too small a radius for my thumb, so rather than make it larger and have two little bumps on the side, I just rounded off the whole thing, so now I got that effect. Looking down the blade, it's all nice and rounded off like that. So that's all that done, and what I'm going to do now is on the stone. What we'll do is dress it up on with a bit of oil. So I'm going to do 8 strokes one way, 8 strokes another, and then a few singles. So here we go. Now, if I'll probably have me back to you, Mitch, but if I do that, you'll still see what's going on. So 8 strokes that way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8 away. 1, 2, 3, 8. So what that would have done macroscopically is I'd have ground the 8 that way and then ground the 8 that way. Now I'm going to end up about in the middle, but you could have that or that happen as to whichever you finish with last. So then the singles would gradually zero it all in. So one that way, 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 one that way. And seriously, that's pretty sharp. I've got the epoxy cardboard packet. Okay, I don't rehearse this. That is really good for such a short depth of blade, and look how thick that the profile comes down like this. So for that to go through there, that's pretty impressive for a short. It's not a very deep blade. Well, I don't need to say that for feathering is more than good enough. So I'm quite happy with that edge, considering how much time I've spent on it, which is about, I don't know, an hour and a quarter. I'll do a bit of notching and some splitting tests in a minute. We'll get right back in a minute. So I've moved to the other bit in my garage, and because the carpet's 3 layers thick, so I've soundproofed it for the drum kit. I've got a strike plate on the floor there, and then a wooden block to protect the blade. So I'll have some idea of what it's like to, you know, chop and baton through and split stuff as if we're using a tree stump. So here we go. I'm backed up against the door a bit, but here we go. That works pretty well. So I'll use my sissy stick, as they say. I don't want to put my fingers anywhere near it. Yeah, it's pretty good. Now, see what sort of detail work I can do. Feathers up all right. What about notching? Turn it round. Oh, you can hear that. Ready, steady. So for control cuts, now I've took that sort of muzzle slot thing that was there, I can get my hand right on top without it hurting, and then nice. And curved cut should be quite useful as well, because I can start rolling it out of bits like that. Looking nice. So anyway, in terms of a very cheap 30 quid effect, that was 21 with a bit of work. Thanks for joining me, Scott from Wessex Blade. See you on the next one.